Sega.
Oh man. How do I even approach this game? Just how many reviews, let's plays, or retrospectives have been made about this game for the past decade it's been out? It's going to be very difficult for me to find a new perspective on this game. What do you think, Tails, though?
I want to die.
Agreed. So let's start this Dead Horse review with a bit of backstory, because trust me, this game needs one. So, just before the release of Shadow the Hedgehog, Sega wanted to re-establish the whole Sonic franchise, and told Sonic Team to pull out all the stops for Sonic's 15th anniversary game. Not only that, but Sega wanted this game to be developed on the brand new Xbox 360 hardware that Sonic Team had zero experiences with, and they quickly needed to learn everything about next-gen systems because Sega was not willing to delay the game. Take a guess how that turned out. The first ever trailer we got to see for this next-gen Sonic title was shown at E3 2005, which showed Sonic in a much more realistic environment, along with having a newer and more lankier character design. The game was known by the standard title, Sonic the Hedgehog, to replicate the series going back to its roots, by making it take place in a realistic environment. Wow, just like Green Hill Zone! Okay, I'm pretty sure the game probably wouldn't have been this horribly bad at this point in time. Really, this first trailer was more of a work in progress, and was really just showing a clear idea of what they wanted to do with this new and very special game. However, after the release of the atrocious Shadow game, let's just say that Sega was in a bit of a panic. Needless to say, Shadow the Hedgehog fucked up everything. The series was beyond saving at this point. Then the anniversary title went under development, and this is where things started to fall apart. Sonic Team was looking to make this Sonic's biggest and best game yet, but with just 1 year to get the game out, they couldn't necessarily do that. During development, a lot of footage of the game was shown off at several gaming conventions showcasing the new direction the series was going. Along with all the realistic environments, the game was going to feature a pretty neat day and night system, and the game was also avidly known for using the fancy new Havoc engine. Despite a lot of progress being shown, the game was actually suffering from its forced and very short development time. Sega was not letting up on the November 2006 deadline, and to make things worse, Sony announced that the PlayStation 3 would get released around fall of the same year, and Sega put even more stress on the team about making this a PS3 launch title as well. To make things even worse, Yuji Naka, the man who helped get this series off the ground, resigned from Sonic Team in March of 2006, several months short of this game's release.
I'm gonna go. But why are you going? You made a promise, man. I don't care. You're not. There's still a lot around. Alright, whatever.
So, with Yuji Naka basically jumping ship, Sonic Team was all on their own with this new game. But believe it or not, it gets worse. Along with making this new game available on both the PlayStation 3 and the Xbox 360, Sega also wanted it to be available on the Nintendo Wii. But once Sonic Team received the Wii's dev kit, they ended up knowing about the unfortunate truth that the Wii had very insufficient hardware, meaning the 15th anniversary title could not be ported to the Wii. So instead of abandoning the idea of putting this game on the Wii and focusing more on making this game suitable for the HD systems, Sega instead decided to split Sonic Team in half, with one team working on a brand new Sonic game for the Wii, and the other team working on the 15th anniversary title. How did this company not go out of business? So, despite having even less people working on the game, Sega still would not let up on the November deadline. To make matters worse, rumors started up that one of the head members' computer hardware ended up getting corrupted, which caused Sonic Team to lose a lot of progress they made on the game, forcing them to switch to an older build of the game. So they were making progress but also apparently losing progress. This did not look good. What's weird is that a demo for this game was made available on Xbox Live, and a lot of fans say that the demo actually plays better than the final game, adding more to the fact that Sonic Team had to switch to an older build for the game. It's so weird. Then the November deadline was finally catching up, but with all the unfortunate happenings occurring during the game's very rushed development time, Sega's quality assurance told them that this game was not in releasable condition. This game was just not finished and severely needed more development time. What was Sega's response? They didn't give a shit. They still wanted the game out on time, and there were rumors that Sega fired their QA team after hearing this information. Again, how did this company not go out of business? With the last remaining minutes Sonic Team had with this game, all the progress they made trying to restore all the stuff they lost needed to be abandoned again. The current version of the game was just too buggy and borderline unplayable, so they decided to switch to an older and more stable build again so that the game could be somewhat ready for release.
Let's think about that for a second. The version of Sonic 06 they ended up releasing was based off a much older and more stable build. I am terrified to think what would happen if they released this game using the current build.
And needless to say, Sega's very poor business practices ended up backfiring. Sonic 2006 was universally hated by both critics and fans. They panned the load screens, the poor voice acting, the broken and glitchy gameplay, plus just how underwhelming this game ended up being when it showed so much promise and greatness, despite a few confusing decisions being made. Much like how Shadow the Hedgehog ruined the reputation of a decent supporting character, Sonic the Hedgehog 2006 ruined the reputation of this whole franchise. Clearly this game left a negative mark that even after 10 years, this game keeps being brought up as the ultimate example of how Sonic can't work in 3D.
By the way, this game got released on November 14th, 2006. Apart from the fact that that was well over a decade ago, that was also the exact same day Sega released the infamous Game Boy Advance port of Sonic 1, which was a horribly rushed and badly made port that I briefly discussed in my incredibly short 15-minute review of Sonic the Hedgehog from 1991. Hey, remember when I made reviews that were between 10 to 20 minutes long? Good times.
The first ever time I came across Sonic 06 was during my time watching cutscenes for Sonic Adventure 2 and Sonic Heroes back in 2007 on GameChamp 3000's YouTube channel. I was sort of clicking around, then I came across a cutscene for Sonic 06, and when I was watching it I just thought, what the fuck is this? I watched a short cutscene that included Sonic and Shadow, who were being accompanied by this weird human lady and some gray-haired hedgehog. For 9-year-old me at the time, this wasn't really catching my attention. I just sort of clicked off of it and went back to watching Sonic Adventure 2's cutscenes. Another brief encounter I had with this game was whenever I went to Movie Gallery one day, and in the PS3 section, I saw a copy of it in one of those plastic containers. I just thought, oh cool, Sonic, then I walked away. I'm positive that it was a copy of Sonic 06 because I distinctively remembered the game's cover art looking extremely similar to the PS3 cover.
In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if the copy I own right now is the exact same copy I saw in Movie Gallery almost a decade ago. I've been dreading this game ever since I started this marathon back in June. Why? Don't play stupid with me, I'm like the 8 millionth person to do a review on this game. So, let's get this over with. This is my lengthy review of Sonic the Hedgehog. You know what? I really hate that title.
Sonic the Hedgehog. Really? Is this game seriously trying to establish itself as the definitive Sonic experience? Shouldn't it get a subtitle or anything? I haven't even started playing this game and it's already annoying me. Alright, let's start out with that hefty plot. So the story begins with... what the hell is this? Don't get me wrong, the CGI looks gorgeous, but... this is supposed to be the start of a Sonic game, right? So this princess person is trying to light a torch and suddenly has a vision of the world on fire. And nothing else. What is going on? So she lights the flames and people start cheering. However, she ends up getting ambushed by Dr. Eggman. What the fuck happened to Eggman? What happened to his egg-shaped body? Why are the buttons on his jacket so large? What the hell is going on? So, Eggman is trying to get a Chaos Emerald from this princess lady. Her name's Elise, by the way. But she is thankfully rescued by the Blue Blur himself, Sonic the Hedgehog, who looks completely normal. He's not horribly redesigned like Eggman was. He's just regular looking Sonic, completely out of place in this realistic environment. So Sonic rescues this princess lady and dopes off away from Eggman as we are... wait, who the fuck is this? Wait. Oh, god damn it. Did they do the multiple storylines again? Son of a bitch, the story's out of order again. Let me restart. So, in chronological order, in the not-too-distant future, a gray hedgehog who goes by the name of Silver is trying to survive in this post-apocalyptic wasteland with Blaze the Cat. Who's Blaze the Cat? Well, she first debuted in the game Sonic Rush on the DS, where she was a princess from another dimension. However, in Sonic 06, she's from the future. So, for no reason at all, this character from a game that not a lot of other people, including me, have played, just suddenly got her backstory retconned after just one appearance. I subscribe to the fact that Sonic 06 is supposed to be a reboot, especially just going off the title alone. So Sonic Rush is not important in this game's timeline. Trust me, this game being a reboot just makes everything in this plot much worse. So Blaze and Silver are trying to defeat this monster called Iblis, who is responsible for destroying their world. Silver is infuriated by this and just wants to live in a peaceful world, with Blaze agreeing with him. Then they are eavesdropped by an ominous figure who lingers above them.
Just as a flower comes from a seed, or a chicken comes from an egg.
What the fuck? So this character is Mephiles the Dark, and if you couldn't tell, he's the main antagonist for this game, and he's voiced by Dan Green. Seriously, just from his first appearance in Silver's story, you can tell that this guy is up to no good. But for some reason, Silver seems to trust him, with Blaze not bothering to question anything. Awesome. So Mephiles tells Silver that the world was destroyed by the Iblis trigger, and shows him who the trigger is by using a Chaos Emerald which shows Sonic in a sea of fire, and somehow this convinces Silver that Sonic is the Iblis trigger, to which Mephiles sends them back in time to destroy Sonic and apparently save the future. Or will it? It won't. Mephiles is so clearly the villain and Silver is a complete idiot. So that explains why Silver was present in the first cutscene for Sonic's story, but Blaze isn't present. That's mainly because the two got separated from each other just so Silver could have some conflict with Amy, who bumps into Silver, and right after Silver tries to kill Sonic, Amy snaps at him, causing Silver to question if it's truly right to kill someone for a better future. Is this a fucking Sonic game? Seriously, am I playing a Sonic game right now? What the fuck is this? So while Blaze and Silver are doing stuff, Sonic is bonding with Elise in a very uncomfortable and unnatural way.
It sounds like being a princess isn't that easy.
Oh my god. Then again, when they're not bonding with each other, that's probably because Eggman kidnaps Elise on more than one occasion, leading to Sonic going rescue her again, and again, and again. That is seriously the main gist of Sonic's story. Save Elise, she gets captured. Save Elise, she gets captured. Rinse and fucking repeat. Why is it that the title character has little to do with this game's plot?
You've wasted so much of my time.
Hey, you want to make things worse? Shadow's got a story segment too, and he's actually way more involved with this game's plot than Sonic or even Silver. Shadow is now working for Gun. Wait, why is Shadow working for Gun? I mean, I see this game as a reboot, but it's kinda weird seeing Shadow get abused by a military, only to have a later game in the series where he joins them. Whatever. So Shadow rescues Rouge, who's holding a staff that's glowing with smoke and stuff. She then asks Shadow to help her get to the rendezvous point.
Where's the rendezvous point?
So Shadow brings her to the rendezvous point, and they're ambushed by Eggman and his robot, who ends up causing Rouge to drop the staff, releasing whatever force is inside of it. The smoke inside the staff ends up sucking up Shadow's shadow. That felt weird to say, to which a dark figure forms into a shadow recolor, and it's Mephiles! Oh my god, I never knew he would have been the villain! So Mephiles mentions how he remembers Shadow from a long time ago, to which Shadow retorts,
Who are you? And how do you know my name?
"Aw, Jason, you were just terrible." Mephiles then sends Shadow and Rouge to the post-apocalyptic future.
It seems we've been teleported to another location.
Well, let's find out where we are.
Mephiles. Who is he?
You talking to me?
Whoa, 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 Shadow, Rouge's eyes are up there, you interspecies pervert. So Shadow and Rouge come across Sonic and Company because Eggman actually sent them to the exact same future too! How convenient. So the five of them decide to collect a few Chaos Emeralds so that they could send themselves back to the past. What? That's not what... Moving on. But before Shadow could leave, he sees Mephiles come out of the smoky shadows again with a flame right next to him for no reason. There's just this flame right there and it does nothing but exist. I seriously have no idea what they were trying to do here. With Shadow in the future, Rouge decides to give a Chaos Emerald to E123 Omega so that he can go on standby mode and reboot himself to accompany Shadow in the future. Actually, one kinda neat detail is that while Shadow and Rouge are in the future, they come across Omega, who is still shut off, who's gonna help Shadow later on. It's a decent amount of foreshadowing and helps things add up later on. Just a shame the rest of this game's plot is a mess. So Shadow and Omega stop Mephiles and head back in time to meet up with Rouge, to which Shadow heads off to find the doctor. Look, if you're gonna complain about how crap crap I am at pacing myself with this game's plot, don't blame me, blame the game. It is seriously that bad at staying in just one location with characters not making sense for the convenience of the plot. Shadow heads off to question the doctor about Mephiles, and Eggman conveniently knows about the origins of Mephiles, which leads back to an incident that occurred 10 years ago known as the Solaris Project. Seriously, how does Eggman know this information? This is so fucking stupid. Okay, so during all of this, Silver is still trying to kill Sonic for the second time. This also leads to Elise getting kidnapped once again. Can you tell that I couldn't give two fucks about this character? Shadow shows up to save Sonic, to which Silver mistakes Shadow for Mephiles because, could you really blame him? The two look the fucking same. Wait, hold on. Silver encountered Mephiles in his own story, I get it, but Shadow also encountered Mephiles as well? How did Mephiles appear in Silver's timeline if he was sealed in that staff thingy Rouge was holding? I'm pretty sure that whenever Mephiles was misguiding Silver, he was also fucking around with Shadow, so, wait, are there two Mephiles running around? That doesn't add up. Mephiles can multiply himself? I mean, there's one boss battle where Mephiles makes several copies of himself, but each body is missing a head, so is this second Mephiles just the perfect copy of himself? He can be both this Shadow recolor and this evolved version of himself? Mephiles just sort of disappears in Silver's story, but he's present for the end of Shadow's story where we can see that he can indeed multiply himself like 1,000,000 times. But, hold on, if Mephiles can make numerous copies of himself, then why doesn't he send one or multiple copies after Sonic? Like he couldn't go after Sonic this whole time? Sonic is the main character. Why is Mephiles messing around with Shadow and wasting his time with Silver? I mean, his goal is to kill Sonic to make Elise cry so that the flames of disaster her father placed inside her could be released to destroy the whole world. Oh wait, I haven't mentioned that part yet. What is the plot of this game? Okay. Let's go back to where I left off. So Shadow saves Sonic and fights Silver, to which Shadow does this.
Chaos control!
Haha, that's the best cutscene in the game. Well, not for very long, because Shadow and Silver are both equipped with Chaos Emeralds, and... this happens.
Huh? You induced chaos control.
That doesn't make any goddamn sense! So yeah, this is something that significantly bothers me about this game. I know, surprise. The Chaos Emeralds have the ability to time travel. No, that is not how it works. Let me take you back to a unique game from the Genesis era. It was called Sonic CD. This game used time travel as a gimmick, but it knew better about how to use it. For example, the ancient crystal-looking items you collect weren't Chaos Emeralds from Sonic 1, 2, 3, and Knuckles, but they were called Time Stones. The Time Stones were a pretty ingenious idea. Sonic Team at the time knew that if they gave the Chaos Emeralds the ability to time travel, then the whole appeal of them would be kind of not special. I mean, seeing all the other stuff the Emeralds are capable of doing in the previous 3D titles, Sonic Team at least knew not to be so stingy with them. While it is true that they're always used for stopping the big baddie, it's usually just using them to go Super Saiyan 5 and defeating the big bad guy. The Chaos Emeralds are supposed to be ancient gems that gives whoever's using it very strong abilities. They do not fucking time travel! This is so fucking idiotic. Just because this is a reboot doesn't mean the Emeralds can do whatever the fuck they want. Have some fucking restraint. Even the previous 3D games knew to have that. The Emeralds in 06, however, are the solution to everything. There's such a thing as having too much power. You may know it by the abbreviation of OP, which means overpowered. And believe me, the Chaos Emeralds in Sonic 06 are OP AF. It just pisses me off that they gave the Emeralds the ability to time travel when they weren't capable of doing that in the last 3 games. Now, teleportation and even slowing down time? Sure, that's fine. But going back a decade in time? No! First off, if they had the ability to time travel, then why wouldn't Shadow use them to go back in time to save Maria from getting shot? Don't you think that if the Emeralds had those capabilities in the past that Shadow would have used them? Making the Chaos Emeralds have the ability to time travel just ruins the speciality they're supposed to have. Again, this just pisses me off on so many levels. Okay, so Shadow and Silver use the goddamn Chaos Emeralds to go back 10 years in time. The two come across a young Princess Elise and her father somehow surviving a large blast resulting in the Solaris Project going deadly wrong, thus creating two beings, the fiery Iblis and the smoky shadow of Mephiles. Shadow takes care of Mephiles by trapping him in the same staff that Princess Elise's father conveniently had, which I guess explains why Mephiles remembers Shadow in the future because he encountered him in the past. I mean, just, This is really stupid. But hey, it gets even worse. I'm pretty sure that's like the 5th or 3rd time I've said that. Silver tries to conceal Iblis, but Princess Elise's father decides to, and I'm not shitting you here, seal Iblis inside of his unconscious daughter. Why would you... What?! So, in Mr. Elise's dying words, he says that as long as Elise doesn't cry, then Iblis will not be released from her. Then he dies.
Now I'm going to repeat that. As long as Elise doesn't cry, Iblis won't be released. So are you seriously telling me that the past decade of her life, Elise has not cried once? Not even once. Not even after hearing that her father died, or maybe she watched like a really sad movie and cried, or maybe her eyes teared up after hearing like a really funny joke, or she received some really sad news. Are you seriously telling me that Elise spent the past 10 years of her life not crying once? Blow me.
So before Shadow and Silver head back to the future, Shadow decides to leave the staff of Elise because...
You're going to leave it behind? Yes. I already know what becomes of it in the future.
Oh, how convenient. Fuck off. So Shadow takes off in the time travels portal, and in Silver's story, Silver decides to, for some reason, give Elise his Chaos Emerald, saying it's a good luck charm. No, that's not smart. I know they're trying to set up why Elise has an emerald when she's older, but are you really trying to make it seem like in the 10 years that I'm sure Sonic and Eggman have been fighting, not one of them tried to get the emerald from her for a whole 10 years? Sorry, writers, but this isn't clever. In fact, it severely falls apart because of stupidity. It's even worse if you watch the cutscene in Shadow's story, because Silver doesn't even give the emerald to Elise, and just jumps through the portal still holding the Chaos Emerald.
Oops.
So Shadow, Rouge, and Omega head off to stop Mephiles, and Silver is now on Sonic's side and decides to go help him to save Elise because she got fucking kidnapped by Eggman again. However, they end up just missing Eggman and Elise because for no reason at all, Eggman's ship is crashing. Seriously, all they were doing was just flying away from Sonic and Silver and they didn't even catch up to him. Why did he crash? Oh, hi, Blaze. Yeah, Blaze is just here for no reason. She wasn't there during the first cutscene where Silver says he'll help Sonic. She just sort of appears once Eggman's ship crashes. What the hell? Wait a minute. Eggman died in the crash, I get it. But so did Elise. Does this mean Iblis is released now? Why isn't anything happening right now? Is it really just if Elise cries, dying doesn't count? And are you really telling me Elise didn't shed a single tear when she saw she was about to die? Fuck right off. However, Silver remembers that the Chaos Emeralds can just solve everything now, and decides to... What the hell? Where were they holding those emeralds? They seriously pulled them right out of their bums. I know in previous games this was still a present problem, but we never actually saw them reach behind them and literally pull a Chaos Emerald out of their snatch. What the fuck? So Sonic and Silver create another time travel portal thingy, and Sonic goes,
Silver! I'll make sure to change Elise's fate. And that in turn should change your future too.
Well, I guess Sonic was just bullshitting because after he leaves, Blaze and Silver jump back to the future, and their world is still in a hellish ruins. Guys, I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but this means Sonic fucking failed! He didn't save Elise! Even though he does do that at the end of the story. So why the hell are Blaze and Silver still in this post-apocalyptic environment? What the fuck, Sonic? Okay, so meanwhile with Team Dark, they encounter Mephiles, who taunt Shadow and ask him to join him together to rule the galaxy or something. But Shadow's just like, no, fuck off. And they fight for the last time. In the future, Silver tries to seal Iblis inside of him, but it's just not working. However, Blaze is able to do that, and she dies. Thanks for being here, Blaze. You were a lot of help. Back with Shadow and the others, they defeat Mephiles, and Shadow tries to seal him back into the staff thingy again, but it doesn't work because I hate this game. Mephiles then multiplies himself a bunch of times to surround Team Dark. Seriously, if he can make this many copies of himself, why didn't he use them to go after Sonic? He's trying to kill Sonic! Then Shadow removes his goddamn wristbands and kicks some ass. So the gist of these endings are Blaze dies, Shadow kicks ass, and Sonic saves the princess. Boy. I have no idea what this was, but this was not a plot to a Sonic game. Ignoring the fact that I hate the world that this game takes place in, the whole story just falls flat because it is just flat. This was supposed to be some sort of cool reboot to the series, but instead of re-establishing older characters for newer fans, this game instead relies on older fans who have played the previous games to just know what's up with the returning characters. That's not how a fucking reboot works. Even then, some of the new characters like Mephiles or Silver don't even get that much character development, and the character development they do get is pretty lame. Mephiles is a decent villain, but his motives are so confusing, and he's given so much power that it makes zero sense for him to take this long with trying to kill Sonic. Instead, he just manipulates Silver and fucks around with Shadow. He just wastes so much of his time doing stupid shit, and as a result, he's wasting the audience's time too. He's an idiot. A complete idiot. However, Silver is an even bigger idiot. I mean, he just immediately joins forces with this clearly evil dude with lizard eyes. He acts like a total moron and doesn't have any sort of likable character trait, even after he swaps sides and helps Sonic. He does so many stupid shit in this game that it just makes him unsympathetic and unredeemable. Plus, the concept of having a new character introduced in an anniversary game is kind of a one and done deal, seeing how Shadow was the same type of character. It makes Silver not special, and I just don't care for him at all. Look, I'm aware that Silver got a cult following after this game. I'm sure that in the comics or whatever source of media, I'm sure Silver has a pretty neat personality and a reason to like him, but the thing is, I don't read the comics. I play the games. And while Sonic 06 is officially not canon anymore, and Silver has appeared in other games aside from 06, he isn't really given anything to do. So, no, I still don't like Silver. Sorry. Even then, some of the returning characters aren't very engaging either. Everyone is just this weird, blank slate character. They just stand around doing almost nothing, and they barely ever spout any jokes or intriguing dialogue. They're all boring. The absolute worst being Sonic. I always saw Sonic as a cocky, fast-thinking hedgehog. I'd easily say his personality in SA2 and even Heroes was a lot of fun. I was sorely missing that in Shadow the Hedgehog, but it's almost non-existent in 06. He's always calmer and barely has any attitude. He's so dull. I think one of the worst aspects about him and the rest of the characters is the voice acting. We're still using the 4Kids actors, and I have no clue what happened here. In Shadow, I didn't like their voices, but their acting was at least passable, and at their worst, they were just subpar or mediocre. But in Sonic 06, the voice acting is
Police!
bad. Really bad. I can't fucking stand any of these characters when they speak. One of the absolute worst voices is Sonic. I just don't know how to describe it, but Jason Griffith's Sonic voice just never sounded right to me. I guess it's supposed to be passable here since this is a reboot and the character sounding different isn't really that big a deal, but that doesn't mean the way Sonic talks can't bother me. It sounds like his voice director was Barney the dinosaur. I'm serious. Every line he delivers is never said normally, and he always speaks super slowly so the audience can hear him enunciate every single word he says, while also sounding nothing like Ryan Drummond.
Okay, with your help, this should be a piece of cake. How long is this gonna go on? I can handle this myself. This ship is about to crash. Too bad, Eggman.
Why is he talking like that? Moving on, Amy Pallett still can't decide what gender Tails is.
It's most definitely a trap. A Chaos Emerald! You've already found one!
Dan Green is still dull as Knuckles, and his voice fits better for Mephiles, but he doesn't really do a good job differentiating the two, which is really weird because he's normally a pretty decent voice actor, but in this game he's pretty lackluster. Then again, so is everyone else, so I guess it fits.
What?
Lisa Ortiz's Amy still sounds oddly unnatural.
Love changes everything. It feels like every little moment in your life is huge, doesn't it?
This was kind of a long time coming, but I can't stand Kathleen Delaney as Rouge, mainly because she sounds too damn old. She makes Rouge sound like she's in her 40s when she's supposed to be 18. I've heard a few fans say that Londi Manella sounded a bit flat, but at least she remembered to make Rouge sound young. Kathleen just isn't trying at all. Her voice just doesn't fit for Rouge.
I may not look it, but I'm a real treasure hunter. I found a Chaos Emerald.
Don't touch it!
Mike Pollock's Eggman still isn't doing it for me, especially in 06 where he actually toned down his performance, and that's no good. I've already perfectly shown that Jason Griffith's Shadow voice is still kinda weak and terrible.
Who are you?
And how do you know my name? Yes, but that alone is insufficient. Don't touch it!
Don't touch it!
But hey, at least there's still Jeff Kramer voicing E123 Omega.
Rouge the Bat now is designated time. The one that defeats and seals you in the future is me.
What the hell?
Sensors locked on Eggman. Non-compliant intruders will be destroyed. Dr. Eggman, I will destroy you and reign supreme.
What the hell happened to Omega's voice?
For some reason, 4Kids got rid of Jeff Kramer and replaced him with Maddie Blowstein. I don't know how they screwed up Omega's voice. He's a goddamn robot. What was the point of making him sound so generic now?
And then the world becomes its enemy.
Whenever it comes to the newer voice actors and characters, well, Bella Hudson as Blaze isn't that bad, and while I don't care for Silver as a character, Pete Capella does an alright job. Seeing how this was Silver's first ever appearance and Blaze's first time in a 3D game, they did the best job they could. Their acting still isn't perfect, but the voices they give the two isn't bad. I'd actually say they fit pretty well.
You fought alongside me to save the world. You're my friend, right?
You're still so naive. But I've always liked that about you.
Then there's Princess Elise, who's actually voiced by a pretty well-known voice actress, Lacey Chabert. Sadly, Lacey gets to voice probably the worst character. Elise is boring and severely out of place in this series. And the romantic relationship she builds with Sonic seriously doesn't help. I feel so bad for Lacey since she was actually a huge fan of the Sonic franchise, and was probably really excited to be in one of the games.
I remember the first thing I bought with like my allowance, I saved it all up and I bought the Game Gear system and I bought Sonic. And I played it till the buttons broke off. I loved it. When I first saw it, I really thought that it looked more like a movie than it did a video game. I've never seen anything like it. And I play a lot of video games. I have 4 nephews. I know that it's a really special game considering it's a 15th anniversary. And it's something that I enjoyed, playing growing up.
Yeah, we're not hearing back from her anytime soon. I've said this before, but another issue with this game is that the plot just doesn't feel like it was meant for a Sonic game. In fact, this whole game wasn't even supposed to be a Sonic game. Apparently, this was going to be a brand new IP altogether that took place in a photorealistic world. But Sega told Sonic Team to put Sonic and everyone else in it just so they could have a game ready for the 15th anniversary. I'm sure this led to several rewrites and reworkings to try and fit the characters into this new world, and they still stick out like a sore thumb. While I stated there are a lot of changes to the characters' personalities that I just wasn't a fan of, the only character that actually benefits from being a blank slate is Shadow. Yeah, essentially the main character of this game. The reason being is that he's no longer the edgelord type that his previous game made him out to be, and to be honest, Shadow has a lot of great moments in this game, including this one. That never gets old. This game had 3 writers, and one of them was actually Shiro Maekawa, the same fellow who wrote SA2 and Heroes. If it is true that this game wasn't supposed to be a Sonic game from the start, I'm going to assume that Shiro was brought back on board to try and Sonicify the storyline as best as he could, with all the realistic environments and shit. I also assume that he was heavily involved with every scene that involved Shadow. If you really think about it, Shadow was Shiro's baby, his own creation, and he really tried his best to give Shadow enough to do in this game, even though he accidentally made him have way more to do with the plot than Sonic did. The whole blank slate personality Shadow has actually fits for him. While I consider this to be an obvious reboot, Shadow's personality in this game is actually much closer to the way we briefly saw him act in Heroes, the ultimate and powerful life form that has a shady past. A lot of the best dialogue in this game actually goes to Shadow. Mind you, he still has a lot of awfully written ones, and Jason Griffith is just terrible. But if David Humphrey was still here, I'd actually imagine Shadow saying these exact lines, and it would seriously work.
If the world chooses to become my enemy, I will fight like I always have.
So, yes, the plot is horrible, but I can still somewhat appreciate that after Izuka ruined Shadow's character in the previous game, Shiro at least tried to bring back the coolness factor the character used to have. Seeing how the writing process must have been half-assed and rushed, I'm glad that at least some good concepts came out of it. Really, that's the most frustrating part of this game's plot. It has a few good ideas and concepts, but they're all wasted on such a stupid video game. Even then, most of the best aspects about this game's plot involve Shadow. Silver, on the other hand, gets nothing that intriguing. But it's not like I don't see the potential in Silver as a character. Again, I'm sure the comics make Silver seem cool and interesting, but his introduction in 06 is just abysmal. However, Silver is not the worst part of this game's plot. Silver at the very least had a story arc and a motive for what he's trying to do. Sonic, however, is given nothing. Nothing at all. His story is still about stopping Dr. Eggman, but Eggman has nothing to do with the plot. Even then, some of the stuff that Eggman does have all ends up going to Shadow's story because it's not like Sonic is supposed to be the main character here. To make things even worse, there's this idiotic storyline involving Sonic and Princess Elise. I mean, the hero rescuing the princess is so cliche. I never thought I'd see a Sonic game where he'd end up doing just that. Sonic was never really about rescuing or even getting the girl in the end. Sonic is not the type of character or even the type of series to be about romance. It's part of the reason why Sonic kept rejecting Amy all those times. She was just a nuisance to him, and whenever she was in trouble, he did go rescue her, but it was never because Sonic loved Amy or anything. Sonic was all about the thrill of adventure and being a good acquaintance to his friends, not romance. Sonic 06 completely throws that out the window. What makes it even worse is that it's not even Amy that Sonic is having a close attachment to. It's some human lady, and that's gross. Mind you, we never see Sonic and Elise doing anything physical, but it's so implied that it's difficult not to pay attention to it. I think Sonic's story is just a clear example that this wasn't supposed to be a Sonic game. This is so out of character for him, and it's weird. What's even weirder is that I don't find this game's story to be that insulting. I mean, when I do think about it, I feel like breaking something, but this game's plot just didn't frustrate me anywhere near as much as Shadow the Hedgehog's plot did. It's probably because Shadow was trying to be a sequel and it fucked up so horribly, while 6 is supposed to be a reboot, and it's just really stupid. It's not a proper reboot, and it is horribly written, but I have an easier time watching Sonic 06's cutscenes than I did with Shadow. Shadow and 06 both did take themselves incredibly seriously, but at least 06 wasn't needlessly dark and wasn't filled with all those pointless swearing. It's not that good, but I do have a good time laughing at how awfully written and executed Sonic 06's plot is, while I pull my hair out from frustration watching Shadow's cutscenes. Speaking of cutscenes, in Sonic 06 they're insanely weak. That's really it. Just weak. Sonic Team was still getting adjusted to the next-gen hardware, which was one of the many reasons why this game flopped hard, and it seriously shows in these cutscenes. Supposedly, all the cutscenes did the SA1 and SA2 problems again, where the lip syncing is supposed to match up with the Japanese voice actors. This is probably why all the 4Kids actors over-enunciate every piece of dialogue just so their voices can match up with the lip syncing as best as they could. While a lot of the worst lip syncing moments from the Xbox 360 version of the game got taken out of the PS3 version, most notably Sonic not talking while his lips keep moving, not every cutscene is well executed. There are some instances where the characters are speaking and their lips aren't even moving.
Let me help. I may not know what Eggman's up to.
And even the pre-rendered CG cutscenes got somewhat affected by this, especially Shadow's closing cutscene that I played earlier. Was that seriously the best mouth movement they could get? Didn't they animate these pre-rendered cutscenes ahead of time? Another weird detail is that the cutscenes on the Xbox 360 version ran at 60 frames a second, but on the PS3 they got locked down to 30 frames a second. What? How? What happened? I mean, is there any point for me to render this review in 60 frames a second? I'm still gonna do it, but seriously! Pretty odd seeing the cutscenes in this game take a drastic step down when compared to previous games. Speaking of taking a drastic step down in comparison to previous games, let's talk about that gameplay! Yeah, this is a video game. Remember? Starting off, Sonic 06 goes back to Adventure 1 style of level progression, and puts you in a hub area. While I didn't have a good first impression of SA1's hub worlds, they inevitably grew on me. They were pretty small and had a lot of interesting set pieces to go back to. Sonic 06, however, completely botches up the hub worlds. One of the many reasons why it screws up hub areas is because of the game's limiting art style. SA1 did have realistic themes, but it at least tried to stay in the same world that the Genesis games built. Sonic 06 is going for more pure realism, and it makes every hub area look really fucking dull. A lot of the building structures look the same, and even the open area hub worlds are really boring to run around in. The point of the hub worlds is obviously for level progression, but before I could even talk about the levels, I got a few more things to say about the hub areas. Instead of doing what Adventure 1 did, where you just go from point A to point B on the map to find a new level, or usually use a key or something to access different parts of the hub worlds, Sonic 06 instead decides to introduce town missions. Seriously? What exactly was the point of abandoning SA1's way of using hub worlds? If it's not broke, don't fucking fix it! There are tons of NPCs you can talk to do town missions. There are over 50 town missions, 53 to be exact, and out of the entirety of Sonic, Shadows, and Silver's campaigns, you only do around 10 of them. Or maybe even less. So effectively, half the town missions are a complete waste of time. Tons of reviewers have already dissected about how bland each of them are, and I don't really want to go into that much detail about them in my review. There's that ring mission, which is the first mission you do as Sonic. There's the infamous one where you walk a fucking dog, the math game mission. Then there's one where you play hide and seek with a bunch of kids, and several other town missions that are a complete waste of time. While I'm really glad they used this 1 year development time to put very important stuff in the game, thanks Sonic team. One of the reasons you do a town mission is to help Sonic, Shadow, or Silver buy a new ability from the shop. Even then, you could just play through the actual levels to earn more rings instead of doing the town missions. They are all effectively a complete waste of time and should not have been put into the game. Walking around and talking to people to perform specific tasks is not something I'd like to do in a Sonic game. What would I like to do? Play the actual levels! But before I could even discuss the levels, I guess I should discuss how each character controls. Throughout the course of Sonic's so far 8-year 3D career, we started off with just 6 gameplay styles, to 3, to 1, to... well, this is where 06 once again falls flat. We have a large assortment of characters to play as in Sonic 06. While each of them have similarities with one another, almost all of them have their own gameplay style. Throughout the game, you'll get to play as Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, Amy, Shadow, Rouge, Omega, Silver, and Blaze. 9. That's 9 fucking characters. I like having more characters to play as, but I feel like there should have been, you know, a fucking limit. Starting off with Sonic, he's got the same movesets from the adventure games, the homing attack and the spin dash, and that's it. For some reason, you can't jump on enemies like you could in the previous Sonic games. A lot of reviewers make it sound like this was some sort of deliberate decision the game designers intentionally made, but seeing how rushed and unfocused this game's development time was, I'm gonna assume they just forgot to implement it. Also, the spin dash is back, but I still don't like it. It's the exact same unuseful spin dash they had in Shadow the Hedgehog. Not a good start. Another thing they didn't get right is Sonic's acceleration. For the fastest thing alive, his speed is really lacking in this game. Seriously, look how quickly he ran in Adventure 1. He moves so fast. Now look at him in this game. What the hell happened? Why is he moving so slow now? Tails and Knuckles are also pretty underwhelming. You'd assume that since they're trying to re-emulate SA1's feel, perhaps they'd bring back Tails' tail attack, which, however, they don't. Instead, Tails gets his bomb attack from Sonic Heroes, which is still pretty ineffective. Not to mention, Tails moves super slow. He's actually slower than Sonic. I also hate the physics in his flying mode. When you jump in the air and fly, he automatically moves forward, which is really annoying, but when he gets tired, he stops in his tracks and falls like a rock, which has gotten me killed several times. Plus, his dummy rings are really irritating whenever you're fighting enemies, because you could get hit and drop rings, but the real rings look so similar to your dummy rings that you can't really tell the difference between them, and can make recollecting rings become super difficult for no reason. What the fuck was wrong with his tail attack from SA1? Knuckles. Ugh, Knuckles. He's so dull now. He moves just as slow as Tails, and his punch abilities are nowhere near as powerful as they felt in the adventure games or even in Heroes. He can still glide, but for some reason he has such a slanted descent, and can cause you to fall closer to lava or bottomless pits. Why does Knuckles have to move this slow and have such a terrible glide? He's nowhere near as gratifying to control as he was in Adventure 2.
How did this game mess up gameplay styles that were already well implemented in previous games? To say something along the lines of what Some Call Me Johnny and the Great Clement said in their reviews, this game had the blueprints, and it's still fucked up.
Speaking of messing up previous gameplay styles, I mentioned that Amy is playable. In SA1, she was painfully slow, but did have a relatively useful hammer. In Sonic Heroes, her hammer wasn't as useful anymore, but she was pretty much just a copy of Sonic, seeing how she was the speed character, so she was much faster and had way more abilities she could use to stop enemies. In Sonic 06, she has no redeemable factors. Amy is once again painfully slow. I actually think she moves even slower in this game compared to Adventure 1. All those movesets she had in Heroes are just about gone now, and her hammer is all but useless now. It's got such poor range, and you can't even do a somersault while going at top speed anymore. So boring. I mean, she's got a pretty broken double jump now, and she can turn herself invisible, which I didn't bother to record because I completely forgot that she had the ability to do that. So just enjoy this footage from Awesome Games Done Quick from 2013.
Oh, and here's something else. Inexplicably, Amy has the ability to turn invisible.
Wow, how about that?
Moving on, there's Shadow the Hedgehog, who is almost an exact copy of Sonic, but this time he's got combat moves, which is just homing into one enemy and mashing the jump button several times until the enemy goes down. Fun. He's also got a few Chaos abilities you can buy from the shop, but I barely know how to use them. Playing as Shadow in this game just makes me wish I was playing Adventure 2 instead. While on the topic of Adventure 2, what the fuck happened to Rouge? She has the exact same issue Knuckles has, where her glide has a very slanted descent, and kind of like Tails' dummy rings, she has heart bombs. And what the fuck happened to her karate from Adventure 2? Why did they give Tails and Rouge such god-awful attacks when there could have been better options? Fuck this game! Then there's E123 Omega, who for some reason is much faster than all the other characters, including Sonic. Well, that's one positive, and sadly it's the only positive this character has. Omega has some pretty lame gun attacks. It's pretty clear they just didn't bother trying to level up his gameplay from Heroes. It's so unfortunate to see Omega get such a downgrade in future installments because he had such a great first impression. So much potential for Omega, but now he's just a bland robot character in terms of his personality and gameplay. Such a shame. He also has a glide move, but I'll get to that later. Much later. Okay, so on to the new characters. Silver has his telekinetic powers that you can activate by pressing the R1 button. While around specific objects, you can use his telekinesis to pick up objects and throw them at other enemies by pressing the square button. Silver can also use a glide, but it only lasts for a few seconds. His gameplay gets very repetitive. This is another issue showing Silver had a lot of potential, not just as an interesting character, but also a fun one to play as. You can buy more power-ups from the shop, like a move that allows Silver to slam on the ground near an enemy so that he can stun them and pick them up much easier. In terms of abilities, I'd almost say Silver is the best character to play as. It does get a little boring just tossing objects at enemies to kill them over and over again, but I do like that concept a lot. However, the absolute worst, and I mean worst aspect about Silver is his acceleration, which is almost non-existent. Silver moves so goddamn slow! They deliberately made him this way! Why? Why? God, it just makes walking around Hub Area so damn time-consuming. Well, hopefully they won't put me in that overly huge forest area. No! No! This is not okay! Why did they put me in here? What the fuck were they thinking? The last of the playable characters is Blaze the Cat, making her 3D debut. Thankfully, Blaze is one of the better characters to play as. She runs much faster than anyone else. She has a phenomenal homing attack that has great range. She has a much improved double jump over Amy, and she's got this really funny looking drill attack that's actually pretty useful for killing enemies. Blaze is actually a pretty decent character, and I always look forward to playing as her. So out of all 9 of the characters, there's barely one that I actually enjoyed playing as. This is so underwhelming. What's so bizarre is that the game doesn't even bother telling the player about all these playable characters. On the back of the box it says play as Sonic, Shadow, and New Silver. Yeah, just the 3 main characters. It doesn't bother telling you there's a bajillion other characters you could play as. Even then, how exactly do you play as the different characters? There aren't 9 different storylines where each character is the main focus, no. Instead, you play through the 3 main characters' stories, and occasionally in a level, you'll just bump into a different character, then you're suddenly playing as that character. No! This is not how including different characters should be done! It's so unfair because maybe you'll be playing through a level as an alright character like Sonic or Silver, then you'll reach a point in the levels where you're forced to play as an even worse character like Tails or Amy, and you can't switch back to the previous character. Why? Most of the time they're right fucking next to you! God, it's like a watered down version of Sonic Heroes. What the fuck is this? Whatever happened to having a standard level select with the option to choose whatever character you want to play as? You know, like Sonic 3 and Knuckles showed off? This is the 4th 3D game in the series where they had several playable characters, and somehow Sonic Adventure and Sonic Heroes did it better. What the shit? So how are the levels? There are 9 levels in this game, and you play through all of them in each character's story. Right off the bat, I'm not a fan of any of these levels. There are certain aspects about them that I do like, but it's just not my ideal 3D Sonic game. The levels in Sonic 06 are way more open than they were in any other Sonic game. While this would be an interesting approach for these levels, a lot of the time they're just complete flatlands that have no interesting level structures. It feels like all of them didn't get past the conceptual stages, and the game devs were just using early concepts that they couldn't completely flesh out all the way, lacking the proper polish that previous levels in older Sonic games had. Seeing how abysmal this game's dev time was, I'm sure that's a very likely possibility. There are interesting ideas in these levels, but they all feel kind of barren. I just see no point of glossing over each of them because they all just feel the same to me. Such a shame. You know what's one thing I absolutely hate, and I mean hate, about these levels? The characters don't shut up. Yeah, this was an issue that started back in Sonic Heroes, but at least Heroes had the better voice cast, except Tails. Kind of. This is really not one of the 4Kids actors' best efforts. Every character makes a comment on everything. It's so fucking obnoxious.
I gotta hurry and save Elise.
Alright.
There should be a switch somewhere.
Okay.
Let's get moving.
Cool.
I better hurry up and cross this scale.
I get it.
That tornado's carrying a car.
God damn it, shut up! I kind of pity people who say that Sonic 06 and the adventure games are the exact same because I honestly don't think they know what they're talking about. I more see Sonic 06 as a very lukewarm 3D Sonic game, and saying it's the exact same as the last games is kind of a lazy thing to do. To me, I think there's a significant difference between watching and playing a video game. Mind you, watching footage of them can make playing them easier, but that doesn't really make the game any better, especially if it's Sonic 06. Since 06 was made for next-gen systems, Sonic Team decided to abandon the renderware engine from Heroes and Shadow and switch to the new Havoc engine. And it's painfully obvious. There are a lot of points where a bunch of items and other things just bounce around like they're made of styrofoam. To quote what Luz from Brain Scratch said, "This is what happens when you put a physics engine in a game and not bother to tweak it. Plus the oodles amounts of slowdown is obnoxious, especially on the PS3 version. Even worse, the controls. This is the main reason why I don't understand what people mean when they say Sonic 06 is exactly like the adventure games, because the controls in this game are horrendous. While the slipperiness of Shadow the Hedgehog is gone, the sensitivity of movement is still present. Sonic is so difficult to control. Even with this game's bland level design, you'll still find yourself running into walls because he's too difficult to control, and it's so annoying. I don't understand how they flubbed up this gameplay style when 2 games before it did it perfectly in comparison to this game. So no, this isn't exactly like SA1 or SA2. Also, can people please stop saying this game is Sonic Adventure 3? I know Clement said this game is basically SA3, but he was more saying that out of pure anger towards this game and wasn't really thinking about it. I think Steven Nux made the perfect video explaining this. Basically, SA1 and SA2 were connected in terms of gameplay and story. Not just gameplay. Hell, Sonic Heroes was a continuation to the adventure game's plot. But no one calls that game SA3. Sonic 06 is a goddamn reboot, not a sequel. It's not SA3. Can we please stop saying it is? I've kind of been avoiding this topic long enough, but one of the most popular parts of this game is that, well, it's not properly coded. Oh, who the fuck am I kidding? This game is an unpolished piece of trash. It's so obviously unfinished, it's not even funny anymore.
Slow Sonic is in this game. It's so god awful. Look at the physics.
What are those?
So, what am I doing now?
You're loading up a loading screen, is what you're doing.
Oh, right. Oh, great. Oh, look, I put on the shoes. Oh! Another loading screen just for that! Fuck you!
Finally!
Yes!
Dance over his corpse.
Murder!
Perfectly positioned for a victory shot.
Who is the captain? Why do we kill? So basically, the point of this mission is there's 5 soldiers around the town. You have to do a little bit of detective work and talk to them. 2 of them apparently try to trick you and give you false information, and you have to find out who the real one is. Is it hard? Is it hard? What? Yeah, fucking joke. Please tell me you're joking me on that. Excuse me for 10 seconds, please. Excuse. What the fuck?
That was incredible.
He throws me through one of my rings, and I survive. But not only did he throw me through one of my rings, he threw me through the invisible wall. I am outside the boss fight.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
I swear to God, I did not mean for this to happen.
What? You escaped the boss fight! You're not supposed to do that!
The dog can't believe it.
Where the fuck do I begin? Well, the loops. Just about every level in this game has at least one loop. The original idea of a loop structure all the way back in Sonic 1 from 1991 was that it was basically an obstacle that Sonic needed to pick up the proper amount of speed to conquer running around it all the way. Sonic 2, CD, 3, and Knuckles continued this tradition, even though in Chemical Plant from Sonic 2 introduced this dull concept of having a boost pad in front of the loop structure that automatically gave Sonic the right amount of speed to conquer it. Thankfully, that idea was only limited to being a gimmick in Chemical Plant. None of the other levels had those boost pads in front of loops. In 1998, Sonic Adventure brought back that concept of having a dash pad in front of loops. This would make the player enter an automated segment where you just watch Sonic run around the loop. Seeing how SA1 was really the first ever time they tried to bring Sonic in 3D, this was more or less a good way to work around this. It was passable for SA1 to do this. SA2, Heroes in Shadow, however, kept doing this fad of having a dash pad that would be placed in front of a loop or a corkscrew structure that would automatically send whoever you're playing as through a loop. The loops were no longer a small obstacle for you to conquer in the 2D games. Now they're made to be a quick spectacle in 3D where you have little input to get through it. Despite this oversimplification of loops in 3D games, somehow Sonic 06 fucks this up. There are points where you don't even need to hold forward when going through loops. The game is legitimately playing itself for you. Even then, there are some loops where Sonic or whoever you're playing as will just stop in their tracks, just hanging onto the loop, sometimes standing on the ceiling upside down. At some points, you can just slowly walk around the loop. In fact, these segments are so goddamn automated that if you hold down, you'll still move forward. To quote Clement, this game has no polish. However, it's not just the loops that have dash pads right in front of them. I've already mentioned that every character in this game, aside from Omega and maybe Blaze, are incredibly slow. However, the game tries to make up for it by sending characters through these bizarrely automated segments. I'm talking segments where you don't even have to press anything. The game is just playing itself. This became very apparent in some levels like White Acropolis or Crisis City. It gets so bad that you actually don't end up pressing a single button for more than 10 seconds. I'm not joking. What the fuck? Sonic missed all those fucking rings! How? This is an automated segment! They could have fixed it! Ugh! Speaking of Crisis City and White Acropolis, holy fuck, this snowboard. It has, like, no physics. Now this isn't that common complaint that most fans make, like, Sonic games need momentum and physics to be good. No. This is a fucking snowboard. This is the type of gameplay mechanic that needs momentum and physics to work properly. To use the snowboard, you have to hold up so you can move forward. Nope. That's not how it should work. This is one of the worst goddamn snowboard mechanics I've ever witnessed in a video game. And I have no idea how they fucked it up this badly when they got it right in the adventure games. How many times am I gonna say that? Another thing that bugs me, this is a pretty minor thing, I mean I think the whole thing's a piece of crap, but to jump you don't just tap the X button to jump. Instead, you have to hold the jump button down for a bit, then let go so that you could jump. I know in every other snowboard game that's what you normally do to jump, but that's not how it was in the adventure games. What the hell? Where's the consistency? Fuck this snowboard. You're all seeing this coming, but I'll just let this clip from Game Grumps speak for itself.
Why am I doing a backflip? What the fuck? And then he went through the wall!
Jesus Christ, I'm barely even done talking about this game. Remember how I mentioned that to make up for this game making characters move so slow, they just make them go through these automated dashpad segments? Well, there's another gimmick this game introduced in almost half of the levels for Sonic. They're dubbed the Mach Speed sections by fans. Oh god, the Mach Speed sections. In the last act of a few levels, Sonic will suddenly pick up his speed and start moving super fucking fast through segments that have huge obstacles in the way, and you can't fucking stop! The Mach Speed sections are fucking garbage, and further highlight how horrendous these controls are. You can only move Sonic left or right, and he can also jump. And if you do jump, you better make sure you jumped at the right time because you can't change your trajectory in midair and you'll be flying off the level. beautiful design. Is there any point of even reviewing this game at this point? How many reviews of Sonic 06 are even out there where people bitch about these god-awful decisions? Like, should I even mention how bad the load screens are? This is the epitome of a dead horse joke. They're long, time-consuming, and they're everywhere. Most of them take over 20 seconds to get through. Somehow the PS3 version received a few downgrades even though it came only a few months after the Xbox 360 version. The graphics seem to be more watered down, and the load screens are even longer. How the hell did this happen? In fact, this whole time I've been talking, you've just been looking at one loading screen. That's how bad it is. If this was meant to be on next-gen hardware, then how the hell did the previous games have shorter load screens? Can someone explain this to me? Actually, please don't. I don't give a fuck. This game is still loading! I mean, it just feels repetitive to move on. But fuck it. This game has boss battles, and they suck. All of them are just weak and non-threatening. Dr. Eggman gets 3 boss battles and each of them are dull. The Egg Cerberus is just about grinding on the robot's back and controlling it to slam into a wall. To be honest, this is the best boss fight Eggman has to offer, and you end up fighting it in both Sonic and Shadow's stories. Wait, don't Cerberuses usually have 3 heads? The second boss fight is the Egg Genesis. Yeah, nice try, Sega. You just home in on a few robots and smash the top of it as Sonic. You also end up fighting it as Silver, who has an even better advantage because he could pick things up and throw them at the bottom of the Genesis. Go Silver! Lame. The third boss battle with Eggman is the final boss for Sonic's story, the Egg Wyvern. You just home in on Eggman when you get the chance, and you can usually control the boss to smash into a few falling parts of Eggman's ship. There's also...
Sonic, watch out! He's still trying something! Watch out! He's up to something.
Oh, fuck you, game! Next up are the Iblis boss fights, and they're sleep-inducing. 2 of them involve Silver waiting around to throw junk at Iblis' dumb head, and then there's the incredibly time-consuming Iblis Worm, which you fight twice as Sonic and Shadow. You just stand around for like 10 hours waiting for an opening on Iblis to attack. This isn't a fucking boss battle. Does this even qualify for a boss battle? Just standing around and doing nothing? It's not even difficult, it's just boring. The last thing to talk about concerning boss battles are the character battles. Character battles in Sonic games have a pretty terrible history. They all suck, and Sonic 06 continues that tradition and makes it even worse. Fuck the Silver boss battle. Both of them. You just run around and wait for Silver to say, "How about this?" Then you just run up and punch him. You fight him twice as Sonic and Shadow, and even when you get to fight both Sonic and Shadow in Silver's story, it's painfully easy, though admittedly funny.
Super machine gun table attack!
Jesus Christ!
Chairs!
Oh my God!
Murder! Absolute murder!
By the way, this game has multiplayer. Don't bother. Okay, so I've led up to it. The soundtrack is... weird. I mean, it's good. It's really good. In a lot of ways, it's the best part of this game, but... I don't know. I wouldn't say I love it as much as I did the Adventure soundtracks or even Heroes. I do like how it's atmospheric and does what both the Adventure games did, where a separate part of a level has a different musical piece playing in it. But I'm just not a fan of a lot of the orchestral sounding tracks. Not that I hate orchestral music, in fact, I love it. It's just that a lot of it sounds like it wasn't made for a Sonic game. I guess this is another contributing factor about how this wasn't originally supposed to be a Sonic game. So a lot of the orchestral pieces can sound a bit out of place. Not all of them are bad, but a few of them sound a little too overdramatic. The lack of rock music is surely missed. Thankfully, the electric guitar is still greatly used in this game's soundtrack. The sound director this time around wasn't Jun Tano, but it was actually Tomoyo Otani, whose previous work in Adventure 2 and Sonic Heroes I admired so much, and thankfully he's gonna stick around as the sound director for every upcoming Sonic game except Generations. While I don't think every level tune is a home run, there's still plenty of tracks that I think Tomoyo and his sound team did a tremendous job at composing. I love all the music tracks that play in Crisis City. White Acropolis has a lot of head-popping tunes, a lot of the hub areas have a lot of relaxing themes to listen to, and while I hate the Mach Speed sections, the music in them is pretty fast-paced and rockin'. I'd actually say the Mach sections have some of my favorite music tracks in this game. The vocal themes are also pretty solid. Silver, Shadow, and Sonic get their own theme songs, and they're not bad. Silver gets a very techno-sounding theme called Dreams of an Absolution by Lee Brotherton of the Remix Factory, who also did the Doctoral Beatnik mix from Shadow. Silver's theme has a few futuristic feelings towards it. Pretty fitting seeing how he's from the future. One thing you're probably wondering is just where the hell is Jun To-know in all of this? While he didn't have much to do with the level themes, him and his band Crush 40 came back with a cover of All Hail Shadow from Shadow the Hedgehog, which is fittingly Shadow's theme song. While I didn't mind the original version of this song, All Hail Shadow, heroes rise again, obliterating everything that's not your friend. The Crush 40 remix is pretty nice. They give their own spin on the song and really makes it sound spectacular. It's a great vocal theme and it's nice to see Crush 40 have a place somewhere in this solid soundtrack. All hail Shadow, heroes rise again, obliterating everything that's not your friend. Then there's Sonic's theme song, which is considered to be the best vocal theme in this game, which I agree with. The song is called His World, and there are actually 3 different versions of this song. There's a version in the actual game composed by Tomoyo Otani, with the vocals being provided by the lead singers of Zebrahead. In this world, where life is strong, in this world, life's an open book. In this world, where compromise does not exist. In his world of wolves, every step meets the rest. Then there's the version by the Zebrahead Band. What? In this world, gotta make your own way. One is all in this world. Life is just a game of play. Never fear the fall. When you leave without a net, you'll find there won't be there all the time. So watch your step, yeah, watch your step, don't fall. And Crush 40 even did their own version of the theme. In this world, where compromise does not exist. In this world, the world's every step meets the risk. However, the Crush 40 and Zebrahead covers aren't in the game. Only the original version of the song is in the game. I do like it quite a lot. A few fans can't really get into the super fast rapping or just the overall tone of the song in general. The only complaint I have about it is that, like the whole soundtrack, it's too good for this game. It's super fast paced and it's just a great song. For a lot of people, it's not just the best vocal theme in the game, it's the best thing in the game. Holy shit. Really, the soundtrack is the most polished part of this game. In fact, it's way too good for this broken down mess of a game. Such a shame to see so much work put into this game's musical score, and it barely escapes this game. It's not perfect, but it's definitely a very well put together soundtrack, and a very nice first go for Tomoyo being the sound director. Well, I guess I should talk about a few of the things you can unlock in the shop. For Shadow and Silver, they get the usual upgrades. Shadow gets a few Chaos powers that I never use, and Silver can get better telekinetic powers, and a stash move that sends him all but 2 feet forward. So useful. You know, it would have been pretty neat if Silver could move super fast like he could in his first cutscene. Yeah, some call me Johnny brought that up on numerous occasions, but it's a good point, so I'm bringing it up too. Fuck you. For Sonic, you can buy all sorts of power-ups in the shop. There are about 7 special gem power-ups that Sonic can use to his advantage by pressing the R1 button. There's the green gem that does this tornado move that I never use. There's the red gem that apparently slows down time, but I don't really use it that much. Okay, most of the gems in this game aren't very worthwhile. However, there are the purple and blue gems that I like using the most. The blue gem can make Sonic get a short burst of speed, and I love using it a lot. It's definitely worth getting because of how super slow Sonic is in this game. Then there's the purple gem, which makes Sonic shrink into microscopic size. Somehow, this can allow Sonic to perform several jumps that can be used to find easy shortcuts in levels. There's also this yellow gem, which... Wait, is that the electric shield? Holy shit, it's drawing in rings! They brought the electric shield back! Huh, odd. There's also the Sky Gem that you could use to switch to first person mode and toss a light teal block at a specific part of the level and Sonic will fly towards it, and it looks ridiculous. You can also quite infamously use this gem to break through the invisible wall in Silver's boss battle. You can't really do that much aside from exploring the incredibly barren hub world. Some buildings didn't even load and most of the bridges are invisible. Oh well, send us to the moon, Silver.
It's no use! Take
Even though I only use about 3 of them, you know what's the best part about these gems? Well, there's this bar on the bottom right of the screen dubbed the Action Gauge. When you're playing as Shadow or Silver, you'll notice that the gauge goes down whenever you're using Shadow's Chaos abilities or Silver's Hover mode. Apparently, the gauge was meant to limit your use of Sonic's gems, but for some reason some game dev didn't bother encoding it properly, so the Action Gauge will never go down when you're using Sonic's gems, so you can actually use them indefinitely. Now you could use the yellow gem to have the electric shield forever, until you get hit I think. You can spam the blue gem to make Sonic go super fast until he bumps into a wall. You can use the purple gem to make Sonic jump forever, to skip huge sections of the levels and even find areas he's not supposed to be in. Speaking of jumping indefinitely to areas you're not supposed to be in, let's go back to Omega. Omega has a lame hover ability which has a painfully quick descent. However, if you jump in the air and rapidly mash the jump button, Omega will actually stay in the air for much longer. In fact, you can use this ability to skip sections or even come across level segments he's not supposed to be in. Yup, he'll just stay in the air for as long as you want. Just keep tapping that jump button to explore anywhere you'd like to go as Omega. Fantastic game. Want to make things even more funny? Read the instruction manual. It's pretty hysterical when you read about the stuff that's in it, especially the power-up items section on page 12. It lists the rings, 1-up, and the invincibility. Yeah, that power-up is back, but it wasn't even fully complete either. You'll hear the invincibility music, but sometimes the sparkly graphics won't pop up or it'll last longer than the music track plays. It does make the character invincible, but it looks so unfinished that it's pretty funny. Another thing listed in the power-up section are the Gauge Up Drives, which are items you collect after smashing Eggman's overly realistic mechs. Yeah, there's no point to calling these things badniks. They're fucking mechs. Boring, generic mechs. Anyways, you can collect a bunch of Gauge Up Drives that do fuck all for Sonic, but does replenish Shadow and Silver's Action Gauge. However, on page 14, the manual says that you can collect Gauge Up Drives to use all the extra abilities Sonic, Shadow, or Silver have, and that the Gauge cannot be used when empty. Yeah, I don't think that'll be a problem for Sonic. Not only that, the next paragraph goes on to explain that you could use custom actions with some of them reaching up to level 3. What the fuck is the manual talking about? What level 3? Even the manual wasn't finalized before this game's release. Plus, this is the PS3 manual, and the PS3 version came out later on. Sweet Jesus. I'm still not done talking about the manual. Back on the power-up section, it lists 2 other items in the center, the shield and the high-speed shoes. The 2 classic items from the Genesis games, but they're not even in this game. But the manual still lists them? Why? The only shield I can recall was equipping the electric shield, but that was from the yellow gem that you buy from the shop. The manual makes it sound like you could get the shield by smashing it in an item box like you usually do for rings or 1-ups. I don't remember finding the standard shield in any level. And the high-speed shoes, they're nowhere to be seen in regular levels. However, thanks to some Call Me Johnny's Sonic 06 playthrough, he actually proved that the speed shoes are actually still in the game, but it's extremely rare. It's not in any of the levels or any of the hub areas. It's in a town mission. Yes, a fucking town mission. Go to Shadow's 8th town mission titled Protect the Professor's Car. About halfway through the mission, when you dive through several rainbow rings and attack a few Iblis creatures, you'll come across the speed shoes. Look at that, they're actually in the game, and they function like they're supposed to as well. This is the only known part of the game where the speed shoes make an appearance. A fucking town mission that you don't even have to do in order to complete the game. What the shit. Such a useful instruction manual. Oh yeah! There's also these metal thingies you earn after completing a level. You can also collect them individually in the levels. Just what are these medals? Well, clearly they're supposed to be the emblems of Sonic 06, and there are 180 of them to collect. Wow, that's the exact same amount of emblems that were in Sonic Adventure 2. This game is so much like the previous games. What happens when you collect all of them? Nothing. Nothing happens. You get nothing from collecting all the medals in this game. Seriously. I even copied a save file off GameFAQs again just to check this. You don't get anything. No extra character and no super hard mode. I mean, there is a super hard mode, but that's fucking DLC. Are you kidding me? You do get an achievement for it on the Xbox 360, and a horribly English one too. Seriously, look at all these achievements. They're hysterical. But you don't get anything on the PS3 version since this game predates PS3 trophies. They're completely worthless. God, is there any point of going on? Should I just end the review here? So much potential wasted on such a broken down mess of a video game. How could this get any worse? Wait, what's that? Motherfucker, there's a last story segment. How many times are they gonna keep doing this? This is getting really old. Here's the last story. So the first thing we see is Mephiles getting a Chaos Emerald. Then we cut to Sonic and Elise walking down a grassy area until they get distracted by a shiny object, to which Mephiles sneaks up behind them and...
Sonic! Sonic!
Oh my god. They actually killed Sonic. This game literally killed Sonic the Hedgehog. Well, this is it. This is the actual fucking turning point. Mephiles actually did it. No, Sega actually did it. They legitimately killed their mascot in probably the lamest fucking way possible. How did this happen? How did this game end up getting so bad? Okay, so Sonic dies. What the fuck is this? Then Elise cries, I guess? And this releases Iblis, to which Mephiles joins together with him and causes an apocalypse to occur, leading to the entire world to be sucked up in a bright light, effectively killing everyone, except the rest of the main characters. Yes, Knuckles, Tails, Amy, Rouge, Shadow, Omega, and even Silver somehow ended up in the same area together, perfectly fine. What? How? Why didn't they die? Oh, Eggman's there too. What the hell is going on? Oh, and while on the topic of this coincidence...
Sonic?
Yep, the light saved Sonic's dead corpse along with Elise. Is there any point to explain how fucking ridiculous all this is? Okay, while I'm grateful that Ryan Drummond and everyone else were not associated with this god-awful game along with Shadow, I do think that if everyone else was still here and they actually got a good Tails voice, Kate Higgins, then I'd probably be able to take this somewhat seriously. It's still ridiculous, but I think Jennifer Dillard and Scott Dreyer would have done a much better job at delivering this scene for me, but I just can't stand Lisa Ortiz as Amy, and Dan Green's Knuckles voice is either really dull or just borderline hysterical. I can't take him seriously at all.
No, you don't think...
Sonic!
Come on, guys. Sonic is dead and Amy and Knuckles are supposed to be really sad about this. I know you're better than this. Is this really the best performances you could give me?
Sonic!
So all hope seems lost. Well, at this point, any glimmer of hope for this game being good got destroyed after the first loading screen. But then Elise says this.
I feel Sonic's presence in the wind.
What the fuck are you talking about? Soul Silver takes this advice by heart and says, we gotta gather all the Chaos Emeralds! You know, them just using the Chaos Emeralds to fix everything really devalues how special the Emeralds are supposed to be. So everyone heads off to different places to gather each Chaos Emerald. Also, haha, Knuckles ran in the wrong direction. He's so fucking stupid! This leads to the worst last level ever. It's called The End of the World, and you're just going through reused assets from past levels, and it's pretty dull. Just like the game. I mean, for Rouge and Knuckles' sections, you could just glide over everything, and in Omega's section, you could use his infinite glide to pass through a few walls. I learned that from Awesome Games Done Quick as well. Needless to say, this level has nothing on Canon's Core, or even the first phase of Metal Madness in Sonic Heroes. There's nothing really special about this final level. I mean, there's these multiple Eyes of Sauron and stuff. I'm not the first person to make that joke. Well, I'm not surprised. Let's move on and end this review already. So after gathering all 7 Chaos Emeralds, they put them all around Sonic's dead body and wish upon the Emeralds to bring Sonic back to life. God damn it! I know they were inspired by them, but Chaos Emeralds are not fucking Dragon Balls!
You have given me so many things.
Wow, really? He has? I don't give a shit.
Sonic, come back. To me. To us.
What are you doing?
No, stop what you're doing! Don't do this! Don't fucking do this to me! No! Oh my god! Oh my fucking god! No! Oh, and it brought Sonic back to life. This is not a plot to a Sonic game, just... So Sonic is back from the dead and goes towards Shadow and... Silver to turn both of them super to stop Solaris? I could kind of understand why he went to Shadow, especially considering previous games, but why did he let Silver go super too?
Okay, let's do it! Fine, you can come too.
That actually reminds me, why didn't he just go to Knuckles for help instead of Silver? What, anybody could go super except Knuckles? Why? Where's the Super Knuckles love? Oh wait.
You turned pink, bro!
God damn it. So Sonic, Shadow, and Silver morph into their super forms and head off to stop Solaris. This of course leads to our final boss that has 2 phases like in the adventure games and Heroes. The main point of this boss battle is to switch between characters by pressing the triangle or Y buttons, and usually just build up the action gauge as both Sonic and Shadow to send attacks to Solaris, who throws all sorts of projectiles at you while also firing fucking laser beams. As Silver, he can catch the rocks and shit Solaris is sending at him, and he can toss them back at him to damage him. The first phase, which sorta looks like a bird with armor, is more or less a decent boss fight. Here's a tip. Switch to Silver for the first few hits, then change to Shadow to damage him some more. This will make it easier to harm Solaris as Sonic, who just charges his way right to the center. Actually, here's a better hint. Don't play this fucking game. The second phase of Solaris spouts wings, and... wait, isn't that the bird symbol on the Hylian shield?
Is it too late for Nintendo to sue Sega, thus causing this game to not be released?
Whatever. This is just about the same as the first phase, except Solaris is throwing even more shit at you, and he's firing his lasers more frequently. Holy shit, what the hell is he doing? To be perfectly honest, upon reaching the end of this game and fighting this boss battle, something very weird happened. Something I've been waiting for to happen this whole time recording footage for this game. This boss battle is polished. Yeah. It's not horribly glitchy, it's relatively challenging, which fits seeing how it's the final boss, and it's easily the best boss battle in the game. When you're running low on rings, you could just switch to another character who has a bunch of rings, which proves very helpful and functions pretty well. To be perfectly honest, this boss battle isn't bad, and dare I say it, it's actually really good.
Ah! I just gave an actual compliment to Sonic 06. That feels really weird.
Really, that's exactly how I feel about this boss fight. The only thing that bugs me about it is just the characters talking over the whole ordeal. They never shut up. Though it is kind of funny to hear some voice tracks overlapping each other.
No, something's different.
It's all you, Shadow!
Powerful consciousness coming from Solaris.
Another thing about this boss fight is that it continues a pretty annoying tradition that you can only play as a super form during the final boss. I understand that the super form in regular levels isn't really for everyone, but I don't really understand why they kept doing this ever since Adventure 1. Supposedly, there was actually going to be a rainbow gem that Sonic could buy from the shop that apparently gave him the ability to turn to Super Sonic during regular levels. But much like 98% of the stuff they wanted to put in this game, it got cut out. Though apparently some modders for the game found some coding of the rainbow gem and it could still kind of work, but just looking at footage of them using it, it's so clearly not finished. So yeah, Super Sonic is only playable during the final boss again. Oh well. Aside from that, this final boss is A-OK. You know what's another thing that really helps this boss battle? The music. I already mentioned before that the soundtrack is already pretty polished, but the music in this final boss is just brilliant. The first phase has a kinda dramatic orchestral piece, which I do like on its own, but it sounds a little too inappropriate for a Sonic game. The music in the second phase, however, is the exact opposite. It's not doing what the previous 3D titles did, where it played the main theme for this game, that being His World. Instead, we get to listen to an orchestral sounding version of His World, and it's magnificent. Whoa. This is probably one of the best final boss themes ever. And I'm pretty glad that the final boss it's accompanying is relatively decent. It helps add more to the boss fight. Mind you, I hated this game's storyline and I could care less about its outcome. If this game's writing and level design had more thought put into it and the game was just overall better, this would have been such an emotional and dare I say powerful final encounter. Sadly, it's wasted, but on its own, it almost has the same effect. So after the best part of this game, we get to the best part of the plot, the ending. I'm not just saying that because this game's about to be over, what I mean is that the ending is perfect. After defeating Solaris once and for all, the world gets covered in bright light once again. We then cut to a flashback of Elise and her not dead father looking at the small flame.
This is Solaris, the flame of hope.
It's so beautiful.
It's beautiful. It's fucking fire! After the flashback is over, Sonic and Elise end up in the same dark room where the flames of Solaris is being lit. Somehow, I don't really care at this point, Elise comes to the conclusion that if they blow out the flame, then all of the horrible things Solaris did will be wiped away from existence. Not only that, but all the events in this game, right down from the first fucking cutscene, will just not exist anymore. Yup, this game's writing was so rushed and bad they actually included a scapegoat that actually makes it to where nothing in this game happened, making every minute I spent playing this fucking game completely worthless.
Remember how I said this ending was perfect? Well, in terms of story, this game was abysmal. It was stupid, and it seriously was not Sonic. But for it to make itself completely non-canon to the point where it doesn't affect the continuity of previous games, completely making this game a reboot, for that, I thank it. But on the contrary, I wasted so many hours of my life. So much of my time was put into this game. just for it to tell me none of it was important. Really. At least Shadow made the first cutscene important. This game, none of it was important. You didn't have to play this game. None of it happened. I recorded all of this footage. I wrote this entire script. I reviewed this whole game for effectively no reason. Fuck you, Sonic 06.
Elise, however, does not want to blow out the flame because then it means that she won't ever meet Sonic. Oh, boo fucking who.
I don't care what happens to the world.
Stop being so selfish. Let me do it.
I really don't like this character.
Of course, Sonic tells her, "Ugh, just smile!" And she does. Then she blows out the flame, making all of Sonic 06 non-canon. Seriously, why did I even review this game? It is actually pointless.
So if they put out the flame, then why is their logo still modeled after the flame?
The first cutscene again, except this time Sonic doesn't come into contact with Elise, despite a slight hint that she might remember him. Thankfully she doesn't appear in any other Sonic game, so clearly she doesn't care. Oh god damn it, why does this game have to have such pretty CG cutscenes? This final cutscene is especially really well done. The story was just so garbage. It's to the point where you don't even care about anyone involved in this cutscene, including the supposed main character. However, as much as I like the Solaris boss fight, seeing all of this out of context really highlights how wonderful of a closing cutscene this could have been in a much better video game. I mean, just Sonic running about, doing his thing, smiling with glee to see that everything is back to normal. I like to theorize that everyone except Sonic's memories got erased, and all of them have no idea what just happened, but Sonic's memory remains. Only he knows about all the stupid crap that happened in this game. But he's still happy that things have gone back to normal. Ish. Putrid-looking Eggman is gone, annoying Silver doesn't exist yet, and Sonic is just his regular self. I really love the choice of not giving Sonic any dialogue during this closing cutscene, especially since Jason Griffith is just horrible. And the music! It's so wonderful and peaceful. It's the right type of orchestral piece that sounds pretty reminiscent of the background music that played at the end of SA2 and Sonic Heroes. It fits for Sonic's world. Just a shame that Sonic is still in this game's realistic environments. God damn it, why does this game's closing cutscene have to look and sound so beautiful? This game didn't earn it. The story was garbage. It couldn't possibly try to leave on such a peaceful note. Well, it does. As Sonic dashes by Elise, causing one of her feathers to fall out of her hair. Yeah, there were like 2 feathers on her hair, what the fuck. He watches as it calmly floats away, indicating a brighter future ahead of him. As the game slowly fades into black while Sonic stares at the bright moon in the sky, you're annoyed by how all the effort you put into completing this game was all a waste, but after all those hours you put into the game, you finally start to realize something truly wonderful. Sonic 06 is over. It's finally over. Wait, shouldn't the moon be blown in half? Oh fuck it, this game's over. Why do I even bother?
I remember memories from a long, long time ago.
I got nothing.
Wow. This game was really something else. It just didn't need to exist. It had no purpose to exist. This game didn't mortally wound the series. No, it fucking killed it. The Sonic franchise was fucking dead at this point. There was no reason to go on anymore. If Shadow didn't destroy anyone's potential in this series recovering itself, then how do you think people reacted once 06 got rushed out? Needless to say, this game received the exact reception Sega deserved. While the sudden comments like Sonic can't work in 3D were constantly brought up, this game as a whole was just negatively received. It trumped the hopes and desires of gamers and especially the Sonic fandom. Most fans just bailed on the series once this game hit the market, and to this day, not all of them really came back. This was it for a lot of them. This franchise was just not worth salvaging. Every other Sonic game was just a laughingstock of that matter. It's amazing to think Sega even bothered to continue this series after this game bombed so hard.
Even then, just why did Sega even bother to go back to this franchise? Like, how could they? This game made a huge mockery out of the whole series, and it even made some people look back at the other 3D Sonic games and just assume those were pieces of crap too, even though in reality they're still very decent and well-crafted games. Like, how could they bother to go back to this series after 06? Like, why would they? Well, that's where it gets kind of funny.
Despite the insane amounts of negative reviews from critics and fans, the game actually sold really well. Yeah, in fact, it was a platinum hit on the Xbox 360. Even though people hated it, people still bought it. To this day, people are still playing it. The game did obviously get a negative reputation, but that's not gonna stop people from playing it, especially since I fucking bought it. This copy I have didn't even have an instruction manual for it, so I actually bought one offline just so my copy could have one. I don't know what it is, but people just love playing god-awful video games, and one as poorly programmed and unfinished as Sonic 06, people can't resist. There's a lot to hate about this game, but that just makes it even more fun. When people aren't laughing at how awful the storyline is, it's because they're fucking around with the way the game plays. To this day, people are still finding so many things that are wrong with this game, and it's well past a decade old by now. Really, when it comes to Shadow the Hedgehog and Sonic 06, Shadow, by a technical standpoint, is a much better video game. However, I subscribe to the idea that video games are supposed to be fun, and as badly unfinished as Sonic 06 clearly was and still is, I have so much more fun messing around with this shadowy programmed game, especially with Sonic's gems. I'll give Shadow the Hedgehog credit where credit is due, but Shadow was so fucking dull. 06 on the other hand is so much fun for all the wrong reasons. Then again, 06 is only fun after you get all of Sonic's gems or just complete the game. When it's not delightfully glitchy, it's a bit of a flat ground. It's a double-edged sword in a lot of ways. The game fucks up so terribly that it almost becomes unfunny for me, and at a lot of times, just unfun. I can't understand why people love playing this game. There are interesting ideas and inspired choices, but the game was just too ambitious for its own good. Don't get me wrong, you can still play this game and laugh at it, but using this game as an actual example as to why all Sonic games are bad? No. Seeing how the franchise is going to immediately pick itself back up, I don't think that's very relevant to say anymore. Even when the Game Grumps played it 4 years ago, this was getting old. I feel it's finally time to let go of this game, guys. It's been 10 goddamn years. Still, Sonic 06 on its own is just not a very fair game to review. Dare I say it's kind of unreviewable because it's so clearly unfinished. With that in mind, the soundtrack is solid and the CG cutscenes are very nice, but Sonic 06 still remains one of the worst video games ever put out there. It's not the worst video game ever made, but it's definitely right up there. It made a beloved franchise look bad, and it really doesn't need any more attention now than it already has. It's just not funny anymore. It's one of the greatest fuck-ups in video game history, and the world may never forget it. 2 out of 10.
And that was Sonic 06. I'm so glad to be done with this game. This was the most difficult review I've ever written. Now I can move on to the next game in the series, which came out a whole 2 years later. Yep, Sega actually realized that an ambitious video game needs more than just 1 year to be completed. So come back next time on Cooper's Perspective when I look at Sonic's rise back to stardom in the 2008 mix bag, Sonic Unleashed, which is a Sonic game that I don't have that much experience with playing. So I don't think that review is going to come out as quickly. Thankfully it won't be as long either. So I'll see you guys for the next review, and I want Ryan Drummond back.
You know Sega's never gonna bring him back, right?
Let me have this fucking drink, goddamn you!
I can't fucking take this game anymore.
What are you complaining about now, Johnny?
I'm playing Sonic 06.
You bastard.
What the fuck was that supposed to be? Okay.